All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the house down twice a week. Every Monday and Thursday, you can catch us at 8 a.m. wherever you listen to podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, wherever that is, you can find us. Now, once again, I'm super excited for our guest today. I know you guys don't tune in to just see Ron Nussbaum or hear Ron Nussbaum. Definitely, probably not the selling point of the show, but I do bring you amazing guests every week. And Megan, it is great to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Why don't you take some time, tell all the construction champions out there a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I currently own Life Force Wellness, where we provide corporate wellness, employee wellness programs, but with a little bit of a uniqueness. I came from the oil and gas field industry. And so I really understand what goes on with the guys out in the field and some of the things that they deal with. And so trying to bring some of that realness into our corporate wellness programs, because let's face it, nobody wants to just do another step challenge.
Yeah. Most of the time we're getting plenty of those in out on the job site. So I'm excited for our conversation today, and we're going to dive right in there. I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
I think a construction champion is somebody who's really taking care of their employees. It's a somebody in that industry that understands the plight of the people and is doing what they can to help boost them up.
I love it. So how do we do that in the construction industry? We're not one that's known for, the best health and wellness. We're known for being, in shape just because that comes with it, but that's not necessarily health and wellness. So how do we start to encompass some of that as leaders in our businesses?
I think first and foremost, just listen to your workers. It shouldn't need to be said, but I have found time and time again that when I come in and I do any of my consulting with the construction industry, it's a lot of the paper pushers in the back office that are making the determination on what constitutes health and wellness for the employees. And they're not really getting that feedback. And I got to tell you, I come in and some of these programs, these guys are like, listen, when I get off the job site, all I want to do is go home into some air conditioning and crack open a cold one. They're not interested in what you're selling. And so just listening to them, getting some feedback. What do they want? What do they need? How can we support them? I think is first and foremost where to start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it is it's a completely different environment. And what's sad is that too often we look at stuff from a very corporate perspective. Any kind of initiative, stuff that comes in as companies grow, they just get to a point where they kind of forget about that they're a construction company. And I'm a big component of understanding that you run a business. It just so happens to be construction. But when we're talking about this kind of stuff, a Fortune 100 company that has all office staff sitting somewhere, the same principles are not going to be able to transpire over into the construction industry, but we try to make that happen.
Exactly. And I think it is. It's a different animal. They're dealing with different things. I mean, they're dealing with harsh environments. They're dealing with, rigorous deadlines. It is a very physical job, or you're stuck in a piece of equipment, right? If you're stuck running the crane all day, not a lot of chance to get up and moving. So even the dynamic on a job site can be different from one person to the next. And so really kind of diving in and just being creative. I love going in and asking, hey, what would you guys like on this site? Like, what would make your life a little bit easier, a little more comfortable? What can we do to so you can take care of yourself? You know, some really unique ideas come out of that.
Hmm. I would be interested in diving into some of those and some of the stuff that you've heard for, guys out here that own these companies that are listening that they want to do better. What are some of the stuff that they should be on the lookout for? What are the questions they should be asking?
Yeah, so I would say our top 3 that I've gotten has been number 1, sometimes there's not a trailer or a place that's air conditioned where they can get out of the heat and eat their lunch. And so just having that extra trailer space or an air conditioned space where the guys can get out of the heat or get out of the whole cold, harsh weather, depending on where they're working, and warm up is huge because a lot of them are eating their lunch in their car on a job site somewhere. So just that extra cost of having a trailer where they can take their breaks, eat their lunch is huge. I'd say number 2 is healthier food options. So a lot of times they're running and they're getting some sloppy hoagie or a pizza and bringing it to the site. If there's an opportunity to have maybe like a healthier food truck, something that's got good quality food to come on site so they can get better meal options. And then the one that everyone loves that really has been number 1 lately is, can we get a chiropractor or a masseuse to like come and just give us an adjustment on the site? Because by the time I get off work, I can't get to the doctors and my neck, my back, my shoulders have been killing me. And so having somebody be able to come to the site and offer those kinds of adjustments or those kinds of therapies is huge.
Yeah, I can see where the calendar that we run really makes it hard for when you just start talking about, just say, preventative health or in your physicals or any of this kind of stuff, or even going to the dentist, where it's almost like you got to take an entire day off in order to go have these appointments. And I think that's something where we could definitely do better. Start putting, like, how can we have guys be able to go do this stuff, still work? They don't have to use an entire vacation day or miss an entire day of work, which they, probably depend on that check. But how do we also allow them? Because I think that's what we get into is a lot of people, you don't, if I got to take a day off, it's going to end up cutting into the overtime I end up working, which is going to cut into what I bring home. So we just put this stuff off and we don't do
Mhm.
anything about it. And there's definitely ways that we can step up as an industry and as companies to start to make it a better place for our guys.
Yeah, and I mean, that is one of the biggest things that I had as a manager with my field guys is, "Hey, my wife is gonna divorce me if I don't get home in time, and I need to be back at the shop at this time." It doesn't even just impact their physical health, like, forget seeing a doctor, like, what's going on at home with seeing their families? And that's another thing that I've seen with some of these workers is, they drive to a site and they live at that site Monday through Friday and only see their families on the weekends, and so being asked to work that overtime really cuts into that. And so how can we as an industry really look at the schedule and the hours that the guys are working so that they can just keep connected to their family, take care of their physical health, seek help when they need it, because that fatigue too that sets in from working all those long days. I mean, if you don't feel like you have time to see the doctor, you're probably also not sleeping real great. Most of these guys are running on Monster energy drinks, like many of them. My biggest fear is one of them's gonna drop over from a heart attack because of how much caffeine they're ingesting. What are we doing to really support them to make sure that they're staying safe, taking care of themselves, taking care of their relationships?
We are definitely a highly caffeinated industry, and always has been. I mean, I'm a used to be a 4 monster a day kind of guy, and you live off of gas station food, and eventually, that stuff starts to catch up with you, and it's like, how do we fix this? And we started offering, we just had or not cases, we had pallets of bottles of water and ice started to be brought in and stuff to try to deter some of this. Because if you provide it or you provide even Gatorade, it might shift the what exactly is being consumed all the time. I mean, we consume all this caffeine all day long, and I'm a coffee drinker still to today. But then we end up going out and, like you said, you end up going and kicking back some drinks afterwards, and it's like this cycle that we're stuck in that is just wreaking havoc on our body and our performance. And in order to be like, I think construction champions, like we're athletes at the end of the day, and we should be treating ourselves as an athlete because you're going to feel so much better. You're going to perform so much better. The job's are going to be so much better. Your entire life will improve.
Yeah, I know one major construction company that I worked with, and they were really big on fatigue on the job site. And so I went in and was teaching, like, really, how can you get better quality sleep so that you can perform better? Because what we need to understand is that the job site is completely different than an office job. I come into work here and I'm a little tired. What does that mean? A few typos in my emails. Maybe I didn't file that paper in the right spot in the right drawer. But like fatigue on a job site, you have somebody that's running a crane or a dozer or driving a fork truck on a site and they nod off or they're not able to focus well, that could be deadly. That could be serious injuries, accidents. And I know one of the campaigns they were running was even like, we are okay with you guys taking 20-minute power naps. Like if you need an extra 20-minute on your lunch break to go take a power nap because you're feeling really tired, go do that. And that's better than taking another energy drink. Cause I think that's what goes on. They start to feel sluggish at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so they kick back another caffeinated beverage with lots of sugar to give them that perk that they need to stay on top of the job.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I've been there. I relate with all of that. So how do we get better sleep? I'm sure there's people guys and girls and people listening right now, as soon as you said that, was like, well, how do I sleep better? Because I need to sleep better so I can then run a company where my people can sleep better at it.
It's a mix of things, but I practice something I learned from Brendan Burchard. He's like a high performance coach, wrote some incredible books, but he has something so simple. I teach it to everyone, and it's called 3-2-1 sleep. So, what it is 3 hours before you plan to go to bed, you just stop eating. So, all that late night snacking needs to end because you need to let your body digest. It can go into a calming state. You don't have the acid reflux while you lay down to go to bed. So, 3 hours before bed, stop eating. 2 hours before bed, stop doing anything work related. Turn off your emails, go do something fun. Go watch that thing on Netflix. Do something that you enjoy that's going to give you a little hit of dopamine so you can feel good and be happy. And then 1 hour before bed, turn off the screens. If you get nothing else out of this podcast, turn off your phone, turn off your iPad, turn off your TV an hour before you go to bed so that when you go to bed, you get better quality sleep. And if you just start there with something super basic, 3-2-1 sleep, you will notice a profound difference.
Yeah, no, it's all stuff that we have hard times doing, especially when, you get home, you've been working late and then you end up having the snacks and then that pushes everything back. And next thing, it's midnight and you just ate something, you're sitting in front of the TV and sending a work email all at the same time. We have a hard time turning all of that stuff off. Like that's
Yeah.
just part of it.
And part of it is even the habits with what you have now. So if you are one of those guys that's drinking 3 Monster energy drinks, cut one of those back because that's still got you ramped up in the evening. It's hard to come down, and that's why I also think we see, even more substance abuse in the construction field. Is I know I've worked with people in construction and manufacturing that's on swing shift, and they were using alcohol as the coping mechanism to kind of wind them down so they could fall asleep. And so it's finding better coping mechanisms too. And sometimes that's dealing with even mental health, addiction. So making sure that those kinds of things are also rolled into whatever kind of employee wellness program that you're going to give, making sure they have those resources because that's a huge habit to try to break.
Yeah, no, and let's dive into some of that because I think this is some of the stuff that just doesn't get talked about, especially around the construction industry that should. And it is the amount of addiction that happens and the stuff that's used as the coping mechanisms. There's just some of the stuff people just think's okay, like drinking out on the job site. I mean,
Mhm.
I walk around my neighborhood and I see cars on job sites with open beer cans in them. Like it blows my mind, but like this is the conversations that has to be had because the stuff's happening out there, whether we want to say it is or not.
Yeah. And part of that, you're absolutely right. How many workers know they're working next to somebody that has a problem and yet it goes unsaid? It's just kind of like, oh, that's Bob. That's just how he is. He's functional. Like, no, that's not okay. And I also think there's this strong stigma where men don't want to talk about the feelings, what's going on. They're less willing to go and seek help and get the counseling. And, it breaks my heart. There was a TikTok that went viral, and it was a woman said that, who do you reach out to when you have help? And it was just all these clips of all these different men. I have no one. I don't talk to anyone. I'm a guy. We don't talk about our feelings. And I just sit there and I go, why? Why do you guys do this to yourself? You have all these resources, and that has to be a cultural thing, and that has to be more than one person saying that on the job site, but it takes I think, a big amount of bravery for others to stand up and say, like, "Hey, I'm struggling." But that's really what cracks it. I was doing a presentation on mental health for one construction company, and I was talking about, like, you guys have this EAP program and you should use it. No, your manager's not going to hear. It's totally confidential. It doesn't matter what I say. But one of the guys in the session actually stood up as a coworker and said, "Hey guys, I called. I used it. I used it not just for myself, but also for my teenage son." And that was so powerful. And you could actually feel the whole like energy in the room shift, and more people then started to talk. But it takes that one person to be brave to say, "Hey, I'm not okay. Can we talk?" Because as soon as I say I'm not okay and I tell you what's going on, a lot of times the response is, "You know what? I'm struggling with the same thing. I'm not sleeping well at night either. You're right. I've been doing the same thing to cope with this." And it's like, great, let's talk about it. But it takes an immense amount of bravery to take that first step and be the first one to speak up.
Yeah, and not just that, to be the one that provides this stuff, at your company, and
Hmm.
be in a position where you're going to open. I mean, like, how do we do that? How do guys get what are the resources, like, what do they do to start trying to get some of this in their culture, like, with their guys and the field work, and just start making it a better place where people feel like they're supported? I mean, you have all the narratives times 1,000 in the construction industry. I mean, that's what it is. And everybody's just rocking and rolling and figuring it out. And sometimes the resources are not as, I don't prevalent as we think. I mean, I'm a veteran. I was in the Marine Corps. Like, there's all this stuff that comes with all of that. But like, the resources aren't as available as we think. And
Hmm.
at the same time, they are more available than we think. So how do we get this information to the guys, to the construction industry and the companies out there?
I think it's like I've been doing podcasts like this. I mean, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so this is coming out at a great time. But I also think that a lot of times, and we see this so much in construction, you see this otherwise, but it's very prevalent in construction that we promote from within. And so we have a lot of guys that are in supervisor or leadership positions that maybe they were great on the job site, but they are not a great supervisor. They're not a great leader. And I think with proper training, you can teach them to be an empathetic leader. How much does it take to just walk up to a guy, pull him off to the side and be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Like, really? And just have that conversation. Know what kind of questions to ask, know how to build that trust with the others, because that's where it starts, is trust. If I'm worried that if I come out and admit that I have this problem, that you're going to give me the axe or you're going to kick me off the site, I'm certainly not going to come forward. And so it's definitely building that trust, and that has to come from leadership. And it's something that can be taught, but I don't think a lot of companies are investing in the right kind of training for those supervisors. I think they're just throwing guys into the role because, hey, you were really good. Now go be a supervisor and teach others how to be really good at this job. But being a leader is different than being good at the job. And so offering that training and then communicating it, because a lot of companies do have employee assistance programs, but they go so unused because they're not well communicated, they're not well posted. If it takes me too much effort to find the information, I'm not going to do it. And that's all things wellness. If you make health and wellness too difficult, I'm not going to do it. It's about making it as simple as possible, especially when you're working a job that's really grueling and, really energy draining. How can we make access to what you need easier is the key. And then having the leaders that are willing to be trustworthy and empathetic that can see what's going on and be a true leader.
Now, I completely understand with what you're saying about how people end up in leadership roles because they're just really, really good. I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. And you learn your lessons, and not we have to be able to ask, because like not everybody wants to be a leader.
Mhm.
Not everybody wants to be in charge. Some of your best people are the people that they just want to come do what they do and do it really, really good, and having an understanding that like that's what they want to do, because we create some of these messes. We
Mhm.
Some of the stress and stuff that's involved we create because we put people in positions. They're not going to say no to it if you're making it happen, but it's not even really what they want. But no one's ever had that conversation to figure out what exactly does that person want. What does that career trajectory look like? Do they just want to be a master of their craft, or do they want to lead other people in the craft? And
Mhm.
these are conversations that have to be had, because it leads to problems down the road where there's a bunch of stress and it could have all been avoided.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we focus on too, apart from the employee wellness is we're really big about making it a cultural thing. So working with the leaders to have these conversations. So we have a whole program that's career mapping where we ask those questions. Where do you want to be in 10, 15, 20 years? How can we help you? Because that's going to help with your employee retention too. If they know you're going to help me achieve my personal career goal, that's huge. And then also the supervisory training. Okay, you want to be a supervisor. Here's leadership training, because that was me in the oil and gas field. I was with this service provider company and we did all the housing on the drill sites. And I learned so much about what goes on out in the field and how to pull trucking permits and everything. And I got really good at it. And then it was, hey, do you want a leadership role? And I said yes. And you know how awkward it was to Monday, I walked in as a peer and a coworker, but then Tuesday I walked in as the boss and the manager. And thank God I had somebody in that company that was willing to mentor me, take me under her wing. She'd pull me off this side and be like, "Hey, you're the manager now. This is what you got to do. This is the best way to handle this situation." Without her, I would have totally failed, because it's a different animal when I walk in now as the manager and I'm responsible for this team. I'm not one in there. I'm not in the trenches anymore. Now I'm trying to help those, support those in the trenches as a leader, and I didn't have any of the leadership training that I really needed. And that I think that is so needed, especially in some of these industries where we get a lot of turnover. So when you have a guy that's been faithful for you to 5 years, a lot of times, okay, we want to promote him, we want to give him a raise, but the only way to do that is to make him a supervisor or make him a manager. Great, but he doesn't have supervisor or manager skills. How are you helping him with that?
Awesome. I love it. I think what you're diving into now is a whole nother episode in itself. Like,
Yeah.
because that stuff matters as well. But getting people comfortable with having the conversation about how we can just be better as people and companies, I absolutely love. And for all the champions out there listening, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm on social media, Megan Wollerton. Our website is just lifeforcewellness.com, and our email is megan@lifeforcewellness.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here.
All right, construction champions, another episode where you're probably thinking, why are we talking about this? This is the construction industry. Well, because if we're going to be the champions that we're meant to be, these are some of the narratives that we have to overcome and change as the industry grows. And so I can already I can hear people saying like this is what will make the construction industry weaker. And that's not the case at all. Because what we're doing is we're providing our people with the stuff they need to be better, to live a longer life, to live a more fulfilling life. All this stuff why you went out and started your own business so you could have. We can give all of that to all of our employees. It's one I was on a call last night with a concrete guy running a great business. And you know, one of the things that he's excited about as he grows his business is the ability that he has to provide for his employees and stuff because of the money that can be made in construction. And that's the truth. Like, we can create these work environments that no one else can compete with. Is it hard work? Absolutely. Will it always be hard work? Yes, 100%. But we can make it a better place. We can help set people up, educate them. A lot of times people just aren't educated on what exactly is happening. Like, what does 3 to 4 monsters a day really look like long term? Or Red Bulls or whatever it is that you're drinking. Like, what's the gas station food really doing to you? How much better could you feel if you just slept at night? Like, there's all these things that we can do to help people in our companies have a better life. And you know what ends up happening when they have that better life is they end up being a better employee. They end up being more loyal. It becomes part of the package of working there as well. You know, I could go over to ABC over here, but I don't know if they're going to care if I make it to my doctor's appointment or if I have a dentist appointment or, you know, if they're going to care that I can make it to the gym and work out and as well as what I'm eating because I know where I'm at now. They care about that kind of stuff because they're educating me on it. So think about that. This isn't just about retention. It's not just about recruiting. It's about putting your best foot forward for the construction industry. So, construction champions, make sure you go out and you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.
Introducing BuilderComs, your all-in-one construction communication software. Say goodbye to communication mishaps that cause frustration among builders, contractors, and clients. The BuilderComs platform unifies communications, making it easy for you to chat, share updates, and collaborate effectively in one place. Experience the transformation in construction project management with BuilderComs. Visit us at buildercoms.com to learn more and start streamlining your projects today.